Hi everyone. In this lecture, we are going to talk about how we can submit an HTML form. Now, this lecture is going to be the final lecture that we are going to cover HTML forms. And also, this is going to be our very final HTML lecture. Now, there is still a ton of HTML that we need to cover, but we need to get started with CSS ASAP. And we are going to talk about those remaining HTML elements when we get to our projects. So now you have a concrete idea of what HTML is, how you can use HTML, what is its power, what are different elements in HTML. But we have not talked about CSS at all, because HTML is not used for styling, but CSS. Only CSS is used for styling. You could apply some styling using HTML elements, but they are a horrible, horrible way of designing web pages. That's why I'm not going to cover them even one bit. Now, after this lecture, we are going to dive into CSS, and then you're going to see, okay, how these two pieces of technology actually work together and how they can come together and create beautifully crafted websites. Now, let's start this lecture. Now, when you have a form in HTML, like it has a first name, last name, email, password, like a lot of other fields. What are you going to do after the user has filled it? Now, the user is going to click on some sort of button, and that form is either going to be a sign-in form for them or a sign-up form for them. These are like the common types of forms. Now, that button is also a unique input type of HTML. And when you create that and connect it with your JavaScript logic, you will be able to actually go ahead and grab all of those information and store them on some sort of database, which we're not going to talk about that. That is full stack web development. I'm going to provide tutorials for those as well. Don't worry. So let's go ahead and let's create the container element first. It is form, if I can spell it correctly. Get rid of the action. And in here, the first element that is going to do that job of submitting the information is the input, again, input, which is going to have a type of submit. Now, if you just create this is going to create for us an input that has a type of submit. But let's say you want to change the text shown on the screen. For that, we are going to say value. This is going to say sent. So if you just do that and save it, it's going to be sent. Now, when you click on it, you're going to see the page refresh. See, the page basically refreshes. The reason that the page refreshes is because this is the default behavior of this input. Now, we can stop this default behavior whenever you submit something. You don't want your page to refresh, right? Because that is going to take a lot of time, that is going to consume a lot of data, and your pages are going to be slower. That is called asynchronous programming. Basically, asynchronous programming allows you to not do that and come up with better ways that only one part of your entire page is going to be refreshed. I'm not going to explain that anymore. But this is very cool that when you click on this button, the page actually refreshes. There we go. You can see it flickers, this icon and this text. They flicker. This is one way of creating a submit button. Another way of creating a submit button is through button element. Now, you're going to provide the type of this to submit, and I'm going to provide the content of it. I'm going to say send message or send comment, just to differentiate between the two of them. And you can see this has that specific default behavior as well. When you submit something, it is going to refresh that. Oftentimes, you don't want this to happen. With this, our lecture comes to an end. So does the HTML part of this amazing tutorial series. Again, stay tuned. There is a lot more content. In the next lecture, we're going to get started talking about CSS. I'm going to cover a lot more when it comes to CSS, like 4 times more than the lectures that we had in HTML, because CSS is that much broader and bigger. And after we're done with CSS, we are going to start creating our very first real world, fully fledged, responsive website. We are going to have 3 of those. So that's it for this one. Thank you for coming this far, and I commend you on your accomplishment. See you in the next video.